Ну, Чарли Маклин отдыхает после сложного семинара, который он провел на Новоорлеанском фестивале бартендеров Tales of Cocktails. Charlie, for the Russian whiskey lovers community, could you just give us a short update? What's going on, transpiring in Scotch whiskey industry for the last year? It has been going through huge transformations.
Well, you're absolutely right. And it's glorious, but also somewhat worrying. It's glorious because there has never in the history of Scotch whisky, has there been such a period of expansion in capacity, the number of distilleries, the expansion of existing distilleries. To put a number on it, since 2004, 32 new distilleries have opened.
32.
32. And they're not all small distilleries. The 9 of those 32
some of them are huge,
are over 1 million litres of pure alcohol per annum. Currently, I know of 27 distilleries proposed. During this same period, many other distilleries have expanded capacity, and you've got these 3 monster distilleries: McLean, Glenfiddich, and
Rosal.
Well, Rosal is within my 32 distilleries.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're on the scale of, well, they're even bigger than Rosal. Rosal is about 15 million litres. These are now over 20 million litres of pure
20
alcohol.
million?
Yeah.
So McLean is the biggest.
Yeah, well, I think so. And McLean's about 20. I'm not sure. They're capable of expansion. They're growing and growing, and so by my estimation, the capacity, the amount of spirit that can be made in Scotland has increased by 60.25% in the period 2004 to 2000. Well, really, I'm working on 2017. Now, this is terrific. This boom in interest, and of course the bean counters, the actuaries who come up with the ideas and that encourage the companies and indeed private individuals to build new distilleries. It's all in the anticipation of the demand in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time. Will they get their sums right? If I'm being optimistic, I think they will. And hey, it's probably better to aim high and miss than to aim low and miss. You know?
Right.
But there is a great worry because the history of the Scotch whisky industry has been always booms and busts. And so we're in a boom period just now, global boom, great interest in Scotch whisky all over the world. But, you know, historically, that's led to overproduction and a sharp decline.
Well, they cannot be overproduction with the 2 million Chinese.
Well, there we are.
Or the Indians.
China and India. Yeah.
As far as I understand, not every distillery in Scotland is a member of Scotch Whisky Association. So is there a realistic number of distilleries in Scotland, including the new small ones, that produce whiskey? Because of a lot of new ones are making gin, vodka, and different things.
The ones I'm talking about are all making whiskey, and these are serious whiskey distilleries. You're right in that some much smaller units are. Some of them are making gin at the moment. Harris, for example, making gin at the moment, but they're basically a whiskey distillery, making because of course you can sell gin the next day, vodka the next day.
But they're not members of Scotch Whisky Association. So they're not listed on the list on the website of Scotch Whisky Association. They're not listed as distilleries.
But I think that many of them, the smaller ones, like Merkin, well, they're not making gin, but a lot of the newcomers will want to join the Scotch Whisky Association and have an influence on the legislation, because obviously the SWA works on behalf of its members to control, to legislate, or advise, they try and bring tax down, and to monitor whiskies around the world that pretend to be Scotch, aren't Scotch. So I think it's a very worthwhile organisation. I think that the serious players amongst the new whiskey distilleries will join the SWA. Whether you can join the SWA when you're only making gin, I don't know. It's probably unlikely.
What is your opinion of no-age statement whiskies? Actually, for me, it's a horrible idea because for me, I always understood if I have to make like a gift to a surgeon or doctor or a policeman who didn't get enough fine, I'll give him a whiskey with a statement. He understands how much I value him. With the no-age statement, the bottle might be like thousands, but the illiterate in whiskey policeman or a surgeon will just not appreciate it.
No, absolutely right, and this is a problem that the industry has encountered, particularly in growing markets like Russia, like China, like India, like Taiwan. It was really brought about by a shortage of old stock. The stock that was built up, a huge surplus of stock that was built up during the late 60s, early 70s, or rather late 70s, early 80s, the so-called whiskey lot, has now been more or less drunk dry. And so they're running out of older fillings to make up a single malt whiskey. Put in some older whiskies to bring it up.
Yeah.
So it's understandable from the point of view of the industry.
From the point of view of economy, yeah.
Another side of it is that duty-free, which of course is a major player, it's like a country, global duty-free, it's a massive buyer. They drive a very hard bargain, and they want, ideally, to have exclusive duty-free exclusives.
Yes.
So the brand owners come up with duty-free exclusives without age statements.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have to say, not all, but I dare I say it, most of the NAS no statement whiskies that I've tasted, frankly, are for me not as good as the standard versions available.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
So in principle, I can understand from the industry's point of view why they want to make no statement whiskies, but they have to be very careful to make sure that they're of equal quality to the standard offerings, if you like, because otherwise, in duty free they're supposed to be cheap, but they're not really cheap at all, because the margin is taken by the duty free people, and so they're not really. So so you've got from the sales point of view, which you mentioned, how can you justify spending a large amount of money without an age statement? Well, it was first Blue Label, and of course Johnny Walker Blue Label is a magnificent whiskey, but it was a hell of a risk. But that's worked. But with Diageo, of course, with this vast stock of aged fillings, they can continue to make Blue Label consistent. But those who don't have that huge stock resource to younger whiskies, younger grains, younger malts, and come up with, from my mind, dare I say, inferior products. And so you've got the product itself, and you've got this sales product. It's very difficult to persuade someone to part with. It's what's called in marketing terms. What is it called? Permission to buy.
Permission to buy.
Permission to buy. One of the permissions to buy. Why should I be spending, 200 euros on this particular bottle because it's 25 years old, or whatever.
Are you watching out for the newer whiskies? Is there anything interesting that you noticed?
Well, newer whiskey, in the sense of these very, very new whiskies. New whiskies, i.e., just 3 years old, just about to become, be able to sold as whiskey, because of course they've got to be 3 years old before they can be called whiskey, or at least sold certainly in the EU and generally globally. In America, actually, you can sell American whiskey.
No age.
Well, 2 years, I think, but
Well,
but you can't sell.
There are American whiskies which can be sold without aging at all.
Indeed, but only in America.
Yeah.
They can't sell them outside.
In Japan also.
Yeah, and Japan. Yeah. So the ones that I've tasted, the young whiskies, well, they're Swedish, French, well, Australia. I was in Australia earlier this year.
Well, Australia. This is a Celtic country, Anglo-Scottish country, so they have to make whiskey.
But you have to see Taiwan, Australia, also bourbon. You've got this very intense heat.
Yeah.
So you've got about a 15, well, let's say between a 9 to 15% angel share. So you're forcing on, and they tend to fill them into. In Australia, they use a lot of sherry export, but Australian sherry, Australian port, with different names, and they tend to be small, very small casks, like even down to 100-liter casks. And so you've got a very forced on maturation. Now some of these products are, I mean, unbelievably interesting. They're very good drinks, but you don't have the capacity to make a brand.
Yeah.
And this is a real problem that's confronting the Australian industry, for example, because they really need to start producing on a bigger scale, putting into more relaxed casks. I mean, not first fill casks, leaving it for longer. But then you've got this huge loss. They've done it in Catalan, they've done it in Taiwan, and Taiwan, I mean, probably wins more prizes than any other whiskey in the world.
Did you know the other Taiwan producer, the Taiwan Tobacco Liquor Corporation, they came out Nantu. Nantu is, I think Nantu is superior to this one. That
I have tasted Nantu, but only two expressions.
I have tasted all of them. Well, all of the that I can find on the shelf.
But you have to mix. You see, so you can make, and of course, if you Scotch malt in a very active cask can produce a superb whiskey in 5 years. Really superb whiskey.
Really,
it lacks depth. It lacks depth, but it's very sad. And a lot of these whiskies, well, when they're well made, and it depends so much on the cask. A lot of the European whiskies are filled into ex-wine casks, or they're matured in ex-wine casks, and it's difficult. So the young whiskies matured in ex-wine casks, well, they're certainly not to my taste. And this is where Scotch wins out, because you've got to leave it a longer time because of the climate. Well, the climate lends itself to long maturation, but the tradition of trying to retain the distillery character as well as the mature character runs through the ethos. So, young whiskies. Some of these whiskies produced that I've seen. I haven't seen that many because most of them are still quite young. I mean, some of them not even Scotch. And the spirit is good. The concern of many of the new owners is profound. They want to go back. They look very carefully at the old long fermentations, slow distillation. Very careful wood choice of wood. Which should, at the end of the day, add up to a superlative whiskey. And they're going to have to do that because, in 5-10 years' time, it's going to be a very, very
you can make a masterpiece, but you cannot make a brand.
Well, yeah, that's right. Well, yes, but then you see when you launch your brand, it's going to be competing against many other new, and it's going to be very highly priced because it's the smaller distilleries, because there's no economies of scale, so they've got to price it high to cover their realistically cover their costs, and so it's going to be even worse, but it's like a lot of the new gins that come out.
Yeah.
You can buy a bottle of standard gin, Gordon's gin, whatever,
it's like vodka. If you make a gin tonic with Gordon's or with vodka, you won't tell the difference.
Exactly.
Absolutely, it's just the same.
And so why pay 3-4 times as much for an unknown gin or whiskey than you would for a well-known brand, which is the brand is well matured, it's 10 years old.
Yeah.
It's a real problem for confronting these, particularly the new whiskey distillers. And some will survive, and some won't.
We're here at the Tales of Cocktails in the United States of America. What's your vision of what's going to happen to bourbon and Tennessee and all other American whiskeys?
Well, I mean,
it's growing.
Absolutely, and it's like, I mean, you know, we were doing this tasting just now between Scotch and Irish, and both of which are growing rapidly. I mean, and Irish growing massively in the US. The great swing. Scotch is also doing extremely well, particularly malt Scotch whisky in the US. So there's a move now towards brown spirits in the US, which is a mega, well, the world's biggest market, which is encouraging. There are hundreds, thousands of new, mainly very small distilleries setting up in the US.
The Distilled Council of, I don't remember the body, the American body. So the number of distillers here in America, 1,000, close to 1,600.
Yeah.
1,600 here.
Which
mostly, apart from 12, they are small.
Exactly.
Craft distillers.
I mean, it's unbelievable. And so they're all going to be fighting hard. But you see, the interesting thing, Hakan, is that it ultimately reflects consumer interest. Now, consumers, I mean, brown spirits, you know, whether it's rum, whiskey, or brandy, or indeed gin, I would say. It's not brown spirit, of course, but they're more interested in flavour. In gin terms, it's more to do with cocktail makers,
yes,
and so on. But for those who are drinking brown spirits, who are drinking them straight or with ice or whatever, the occasional mixer, consumers are more interested in flavour, more critical, more analytical, more, you know, and they talk about it online, you know, and so so therefore the producers have to focus on that. They have to make a point of difference, but at the end of the day, whether the point of difference is a bit of history and a bit of that mixing, or whether it's to do with making it like it was in the old days, using old recipes, blah, blah, blah. But it's all to do with flavour, and that is very good news. It's very good news because rather than just sort of, you know,
slunge,
down the hatch, it's more to look at the nice stuff, nosing, tasting, appreciation. You know?
Well, what do you think about this glass? This is an American analog.
I've never come across. So I'm going to
you see on the label it says bourbon, Kentucky bourbon, something like that.
And I wonder.
Turn it upside down and
it's like that.
It's like original Glencairn.
It is, and I think it's probably made by Glencairn.
No, it's made by Libby, by American. It's made specifically for bourbon.
Well, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting little dumpy shape. Probably appropriate for bourbon, which goes well with.
Well, it looks like what, a rocks, old-fashioned stuff like that.
Yeah. Allow for rocks.
A variation of that.
That's exactly what it would be.
How do you evaluate it for nosing?
It's nice.
It's better than rocks, but still it's shit.
Glasses with lips. Spread the liquid across the tongue in a nice way. I mean, it's not very good as a nosing glass, but it would be very good as a
drinking glass.
You know? And since bourbon is good with you almost always drink bourbon with ice.
So you personally do like bourbon?
Not particularly. Although I do, every now and again I'm asked to analyse bourbons, and I mean, I have come across some
because they're
really
too powerful.
Remarkably good.
They're just straight wood.
Well, they are. They owe an awful lot to the wood. They owe an awful lot to the wood, and so they kind of grow together. I've over the last year, I was looking at a number of Jack Daniel's samples, which are very, very obvious. And but they were really very good indeed, and they analysed very well.
Your ashtray is gone.
they analyse well, and there's a lot of perceptions. They've got a lot of flavour, Like subtlety, but hey, you know, most bourbon drinkers will put out Coke or they'll add ginger ale or whatever it is. So they're perfect for the way that they're used.
Bourbon gives you energy because of tannins, because of the extraction of tannins from the wood.
Exactly. Well, yes, or the oak lactose.
But it makes your heart beat like really, really fast.
Yeah.
I think I should send you a sample of the whiskies made in Crimea by a doctor.
Well, I'd be very, very interested.
Yeah. I started telling the story. I'm not sure you know it, but the Russian fleet, why the Russian fleet has the same colors as Scotland, St. Andrews.
Oh yes, of course, Russia and
yeah, because the Scots have created the Russian fleet, the Russian Navy, for Peter the Great, and the first admiral of the Baltic fleet was from Edinburgh. Not from Edinburgh, but from the Strait.
Keith, Admiral Keith.
No, Greg, Samuel Greg, and his son Samuel Greg, Alexei Greg. He was born in Russia. He was the favorite of Yekaterina the Great, who actually made Crimea Russian. She took it over from the Turks. So the Scot was the admiral of the Black Sea Fleet. So when Russia opened up for the sea, both seas, Baltic and the Black Sea, were governed by the Scots. There's a lot of interesting things in relation to Russia and the Scots.
But St. Andrews is a patron saint of Russia.
Yes.
As well.
No, St. Andrews, no. Just the fleet.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah. And when Admiral Greg went on a leave, he asked for a leave with the Russian government. He actually asked it from the emperor. So he came back to Edinburgh with the Scottish flag, which was unthought of back then. England, Great Britain, had to accept this because this was the admiral of the Russian fleet.
And what dates are we talking about, approximately?
18th century.
Yeah.
17th something.
So, yeah.
So this is unthought of to have the Brits acknowledge and welcome with the how many? 21 shots when the admiral ship.
Yes.
So to welcome a Scots with a Scottish flag back then. So the Russians, the Russian history and the Scottish history.
Now, are there any Russian malt distilleries that you know of?
Are there any Russian?
Malt whiskey distilleries in Russia?
Right now, 2 are available. They've been putting out malt for quite a long time. You have to be a patriot to drink them. Really. But the legislation has changed and a lot are being built. The legislation was really strange. Vodka was similar to Scotch whiskey. It was a distillate. When rectification came from 1895, distillation was banned, only rectification. So vodka was made only from rectified spirit, diluting rectified spirit. So in 2015, 120 years later, they changed the law. And now the distilleries are being built, like the pot still and stuff like that. But you only have 2 now. Both are in cognac area. Well, not in grape growing area where they make grape distillates, brandy. In the summertime, they just don't have the wine to distill, so
are their whiskies any good?
You have to be a patriot to drink them.
Yeah, but I mean, the reason I'm asking this is that Adelphi did. They're doing what they call fusion whiskies.
Fusion.
Oh, so the first was the Glover, which was a mix of Japanese, high quality Japanese and high quality Scotch.
Yeah.
And then they've done a mix of Dutch and
Oh, I heard about that.
you know, and it's all each of the makes. Thomas Blake Glover was a Scot who,
Yeah.
when he founded Mitsubishi, etc. The Dutch one was called the Winter Queen, who was she was the daughter of King James the First of James VI of Scotland, etc., etc. And then they did a mix of Indian. What was his name? Commemorating the Governor General of India, and so on. So there is a theme there, but your Admiral Greg would make a perfect brand
Probably.
for a mix of Scotch malt with
Probably.
It needs to be quite good with
Probably.
Russian malt.
Well, actually, this is what a Georgian producer is doing. There's a friend of mine in Georgia is making whiskey which has won silver awards at some international competitions. So he takes Scotch, adds some local spirit locally. The capacity is low, so he adds a little bit, and ages it in Georgian wine barrels. And he's won a number of competitions already.
Interesting. Yeah.
But he's an enthusiast.
Yeah. It's
So
nice
thanks a
idea.
lot. I'm not taking your time anymore. Just show everybody. С нами был Чарльз Маклин. Это город Новый Орлеан. Вот такая здесь хреновая погода. Вот такой вот город. Вот здесь всякие разные отели. И все это называется Tales of Cocktails. Самая большая барменская конвенция в мире. Вот. Ну а Чарли сюда приехал рассказывать всем о виски.